Sounds very interesting. I'm very emotionally attached to a lot of places, so I'm anxious to see this presentation. So this is going to be done by Mirdad Kuhikamali, from the University of Redlands School of Business, and Jessica Mosher. So let's give a warm welcome to both of them.
Okay, let's start with the question. When new funding comes in, it's easy for everyone to get along. You all sit down over warm cups of hot chocolate and completely agree on who gets what, right? In all seriousness, I ask you, what tools do you have at your disposal right now to make these kind of decisions? How much input do you have from the citizens? Does your city have a source of feedback that tells you what is going right? Or are your decisions solely based on what is going wrong? What if you could bring in a little more data to back up your position while accounting for the honest viewpoint of others? Currently, most feedback mechanisms only track negative issues that, let's face it, are prevalent in every city across the country. What if today we could start tracking more than the negative aspects of city life? We all know that current mechanisms are really good at generating more work for you. But what if we could do more? What if we could tell you not only where your efforts should be focused, but also tell you what you're doing right? Show areas where things are working so that you could use those same ideas elsewhere. Imagine what you could accomplish by taking that information and applying it to future successful projects. Let's face it, the best budget you get is the best budget you can take. You have to be able to show that you need the money more than the other guy. And emotional place attachment mapping will help you to do that. EPAM, or Emotional Place Attachment Mapping, and GIS applications can help you to accomplish this by enhancing data that is already being collected. You can simply add location-based emotion rating scales supplied by the public to already existing mechanisms. Everybody already shares this information on a variety of social media platforms, including Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and it doesn't go anywhere. People are already sharing it. Why not give the citizens of Los Angeles a civic outlet where it can be used? A system that the city can benefit from simply by using that mountain of data. This information can then be used to prioritize funding, help to identify areas in which resources might currently be misplaced, and even identify trends that can be used to plan for the future. And now we welcome Dr. Kuhikamali, Assistant Professor of GIS and Business at the University of Redlands, who created and conducted the study.
Thanks, Jessica. Let me maybe get close to the microphone. Thanks for everyone coming out today. I know that you might have a long day, but this is a topic a little bit less technical, but there are some opportunities for city managers, for decision makers around the county to think about the areas they can take advantages of the citizen science or crowdsource information. So let's think about Hollywood sign. Some people have some good memories about it. When you pass by Hollywood sign, maybe you have a positive emotion toward it. How do you feel about it? Maybe it brings back a specific memory, a specific moment in your life, and it applies to any other special object. In any other situation, you see a building, maybe you go to your childhood neighborhood, you feel attached, you feel emotionally attached to a specific place. So how do you think we can take advantages of, how we can take advantage of this type of information? Usually it's not being collected. It's very hard to take advantage of the emotional states, and the concept is not really a new concept. It's a Greek concept known as topophilia, and it comes from the topo and philia, love of place, and has been around for many centuries. And it actually explains the love of place, how people feel about certain location, how people feel about certain buildings, how people feel about certain neighborhoods. So it doesn't get more iconic than this. The Hollywood sign is shown everywhere, from movies to pictures to posters. No other sign can cause this much emotion for so many people. Little things go through my body every time I drive by, and I smiled. So right away you see a positive emotion coming out of that specific experience, and it might be different for different people. Maybe people have experienced a little bit different. There is a different emotion coming out of it. So let's think about the proof of concept or emotional place attachment mapping. So the goal of this project was to make sure that these emotions are being mapped and they can be used for an actionable decision-making process. So what we did was we focused on the cleanliness on the campus, the University of Redlands campus. So when people see clean environment, they are positively inclined to go back and experience that environment. If there's a dirt or there's a not clean environment, they probably have some negative emotions toward those places. So what we did, we built an application, we used the Survey123 application provided by Esri to collect these crowdsourced information, and students were participated in this project, and they provided their emotional types toward these places. There are four primary emotions. You have happy, you have fear, you have sad, and you have disgust. So these four primary emotions can be collected, and for every single point, every single building, every single location that people are going to, or they are attending, or they have experience with, they are providing these emotions. And in the app that you can actually, in the PowerPoint that is going to be available on the website, I believe there's a QR code they can scan. Also, there's a link for the app, so you can actually look for yourself the specific questions. So we ask a couple of main questions for each point. So for each point, we ask if it's a clean environment or it's not. Simple as that, binary scale. But then we also expanded to, how do you feel overall about this location? Is it a positive experience? Is it a positive sentiment, or is it a negative sentiment? And there's one in between, which is neutral. Some people may not have any positive or negative emotion about the places, sentiment about places. And then we broke it another level. What are the main emotion comes into your mind, comes into your heart about this place? Do you feel happy about it? Do you feel fear? Do you feel disgust? Or do you feel sad? So these four are also extracted. And then of course the location and the images of those points are being collected through the app. And at the end, it will provide, if you just simply show the points as a heat map, it does not give you enough details, and as a decision maker, as a manager, you cannot make any specific action using just a heat map of the points. It doesn't give you that much detail. But then if you can break it down by these different factors, that's when you can make much more insight, much more emotions, much more decision-making processes, much more accurate. So total of 434 survey points were collected. So each of these points are individual buildings or outdoor spaces or indoor spaces. Overall, the 434 survey points were collected. And there were a couple of highlights about these points that I asked Jessica. There is one specific question at the end, open-ended question, and students or users were able to provide what they feel in reality. What is the reason for their ratings? So that gives them a chance to provide more insights, even though that's not collected through those indicators. So Jessica, do you want to talk about some of these highlights?
Sure. One of the quotes that stood out was, during this experiment, I got to experience a feeling that for every spot I was analyzing based on its surrounding, whether it was outside or inside the building. That's someone from my class named Jessie Kosan. Another one, scroll down a little bit. From the moment they walked on campus, people should have the memorable moments that add meaning to that specific location. For example, my freshman year, I hit the gym every day and practiced every night on the football field. In a sense, it was like home to me. Mickey Bentencourt, and he was also in my part of the study.
So, speaking of more detailed analysis, we broke down the points into 4 main categories: happy, sad, anger, and fear and disgust. So, if you look at the colors, most of the campus, of course, you expect a university campus to expose some happy feelings about it, and that's what we found, and it's very interesting. But then we also found a couple of locations that were involved with the sadness feeling, and some points on the north and south of the campus, the red represents the disgust emotion. So let's also bring some examples from each of these categories. So for example, for happy emotions, this is the administration building. It's a very nice area, and the outdoor area is very nicely maintained, and most of the emotions were happy around this specific building, and that's what we expect because these are well equipped and these are well maintained, and students provide a very high positive emotion with happy type, and because it's a beautiful building. And then we also scroll down to the sad emotions. There's an area that used to be frisbee golf course, and some respondents provide a sad emotion toward it because it's not well maintained, and it's also a little bit dangerous for people or for kids to play in this court. And that's right away for a city manager, for a decision maker, gives an insight that this should be changed. This can be an opportunity for future improvement, right? And speaking of disgust emotion, there is a specific secluded area around campus that was just on the back of one of the buildings, and people or students provided very high negative and disgust emotion toward it. And as a decision maker, again, it can give you an insight that this probably could be an unsafe area. It could cause some issues in the future. It might have some negative consequences. And the last one, or least, is the fear emotion. It's not very common across campus, but we had a couple of areas. And there's a street actually next to the School of Business. It's a two-way street, but there's only room for one car. And there's actually a pedestrian route right next to it. So it's a very specific situation for many decision makers that could be a ring bell that we have to do something about it. If you have support from your citizens, from your users, from your students, that gives you next step movement. And speaking of the tools, we also have created, I don't know how to minimize, we also created a dashboard and insights for our GIS S3 platform. So this is live data, of course, and if you click on any of these categories right away, it works. It right away highlights areas that are related to that specific emotion. So if it's happy emotion, for example, you know that most of the points are happy and positive sentiment, but we had a couple of negative sentiments related to happy emotions, which is interesting. You can, of course, exclude that point, or you can investigate more, see what is the reason people provide happy emotion at the same time negative sentiment. And then we also built, we added another column about the gender who actually collected these points, and we showed some differences across genders. People who were, of course, male had different opinions about certain locations compared to the female population. So that could be another area if you are building a project, if you think about innovating a specific area in the city, what would be the opportunities. And I believe that gets us to the part that we can provide some, hopefully, future insights for the city of LA. And Jessica, please take away.
Okay, this is a really good picture, you guys. I'm sorry it's not loading, but it's online, so we got it covered. With EPAM, Los Angeles could become a smarter city by using emotions to identify things that do work as well as things that don't, thus reducing wasted resources. Anybody find Waldo? Anybody? No? Okay. So we used the conceptualization of a city park because most people have installed, purchased, been to one. So a good illustration of this can be seen in the context of a local city park. Positive feedback on specific areas of a new playground can offer you information about what works, which could be replicated across the city and other parks. On the other hand, something that has been repeatedly rated as disgusting, sad, or as causing fear can be targeted for removal and replacement. This is just one example of how EPAM can take the guesswork out of city planning in the future projects. Going back to how EPAM could benefit Los Angeles, EPAM can effectively move the current city work order structure from reactive to proactive. Using EPAM prioritization software could process citizen feedback regarding work orders. Work orders with feedback indicating a fear for safety can be given a higher priority over orders that may be only addressed as sadness or disgust. EPAM can also assist with location repurposing. EPAM reports can highlight locations such as parks, buildings, and open fields that might not be in need of repair or may only have minor repair concerns, but are unused or underused based on aesthetics or hazardous conditions. These areas might be considered for smaller beautification projects, requiring less spending as well as decreased priority. Considering that most budget decisions are based on their fiscal impact and often dictated by litigation prevention and tourist attraction, EPAM offers a new proactive solutions approach through crowdsourcing big data that can positively impact resource allocation. So there's a lot of potential uses for it. I'm going to highlight a few. The sky is the limit when using emotional place attachment mapping data. This data can be used to generate educational and research databases, increase citizen buy-in in their communities, contribute to the arts, grant writing, proposal considerations, and many other areas where big data can make a difference in decision-making processes. To summarize what EPAM, or Emotional Place Attachment Mapping, looks like at the city level, EPAM offers the ability to reallocate funding to areas in need, prioritize funding with less guesswork and more certainty, reduced wasteful spending, give citizens an active voice in their communities, and grant a sense of accomplishment and positive feedback for the hardworking civil servants that maintain this world-class city. And that ends our presentation.
And the contacts, everything is on the story map, also on the PowerPoint. So if you have any question after the meeting, just let me know and I'll be happy to discuss more details. If you have any question right now, just go ahead. Yes.
So what was the decision for focusing on just the primary emotions, the happy, sad, fear, disgust? Because one could argue that would barely scratch the surface of capturing, what someone experiences at a place. So what was the drive for focusing just on
So
those?
we wanted to make it simple for the students to be able to collect all the 434 points. At the same time, we want to be able to capture the primary emotions. But you're right, it can be even divided to more emotion types and more accurately acquire what is the main emotion that people feel about these locations. Definitely there can be an expansion, but we want to make it simple, but at the same time, we capture the right type of emotion, the primary emotion.
So were those emotions defined then for the students? Like
Yes.
happy is considered this and that and the other?
Yes, so we define each primary emotion. So before before the actual project was conducted, we had a 1 hour session to discuss the project, what is the goal, what is the definition of each of these variables. That could be a short video that we provide for the citizens. That could be maybe outcome of the annual reports for the citizen that is provided or given by city managers or for decision makers. Definitely that can be added for the future expansion.
All right, well, thank you both. That was very interesting.
Thank you.
One of the things those GIS folks struggle with is simplicity sometimes. You know, we make these complicated apps sometimes that are hard for the public to use or interpret, but I think with this survey and the emotions, that's a great way to get, someone engaged, because everyone has an emotional opinion about a place. So kudos, very good work.
Thank you.
And as an appreciation for, we just have one for you, I'm sorry. But here, this is her
Thank you.
certificate for coming out, and let's have another round of applause.
Thank you.
Stick around for the last presentation.